Super Brawl 2. What a weird and wacky game. If you haven't seen my thoughts on it, I did a whole retrospective on the series, and I do recommend checking it out. But one thing that got me curious is how the game carries itself. Despite being a purely single-player game, it's presented as a competitive 2D fighter, and that got me thinking, who is the best of the best? After a thorough review and analysis of the cast, I think I have a pretty solid opinion on who the best and worst characters are. So join me as we hop down the rabbit hole and see just how wild this game gets. Before I begin, I have a quick few things to say. First off, shoutouts to Pipka, who originally inspired me to check these games out with her own tier list. While our lists are very different, if you're curious about another take, I recommend checking out hers. I'll link it in the description. Also, I'd like to explain the way the tiers are factored. Ideally, the best way to do it would be scoring potential, since that's the most consistent factor and the closest the game has to a competitive mode. However, honestly, I think this is kind of a lame way to make the list, and severely hurts broken characters that rely on zoning, which doesn't give consistent score in this game. Instead, let's pretend this is a truly competitive game. In this case, a new important factor arises: consistency. The worst characters are those that can barely win, and the best characters are near impossible to lose with. With that said, let's look at the characters, starting with the bottom of the barrel. We begin at F tier. F tier characters are basically non-functional. They either have moves that straight up don't work, or are so slow they have basically zero consistency. In a lot of Kusoge games like this, there tends to be a character that has a really cool concept, but cannot compete with the rest of the cast because their gimmick is a bit too off from the rest of the cast. King Julian is that character. His punches and kicks are average, but struggle to deal with zoning. The idea is that he can use his gimmick to pressure the opponent and approach, which is the fact he has Mort, who is mapped to the special and super, and moves independently from Julian. There are 3 problems with this. 1. Mort can be attacked while he is attacking, which is reasonable counterplay. 2. King Julian will just dance whenever Mort is active, breaking the whole point of having a puppet in the first place. Lastly, Mort will miss unless he's perfectly spaced, making the move borderline unusable. The super version causes Julian to kick Mort into place, but it does little damage and doesn't even space him right. Julian is very fun to experiment with, but don't expect results. Timmy is the only F tier character with no moves that are flat out not working. It's just a matter of everything he does being really bad. The damage on his normals is actually kinda alright, but they have what feels like years of startup and end lag on all of them. This is especially noticeable on his jump kick, as Timmy is one of the few characters with noticeably bad landing lag. His special is the slowest move in the entire game, and while it hits hard, doesn't reward you with enough to make up for the fact that you can just walk away from it or hit him out of it. Timmy's super is actually kind of alright, but don't bank on it being all that helpful. Plankton is a very rough character, as his best buttons are still below average. Plankton's punch combo has an interesting launch angle at the end, but his low jump kick range means the opponent has a chance to block before any follow-ups. His ground normals have okay range, but are pretty slow. However, the reason he's undeniably a borderline unusable character is due to the special and super moves. Plankton's special is a cannonball that does average damage and puts him a safe distance from the enemy, but has somewhat high end lag. If you're familiar with Mei from Guilty Gear, this may seem like an amazing move. However, the move will occasionally just whiff, likely due to how high up it goes, making it utterly useless. To add insult to injury, Plankton's super is terrible. He jumps high into the air before slamming down, dealing below average damage. If its high startup and low damage weren't bad enough, it has pitiful range, meaning that even if you are on top of someone, it may not hit. Overall, Plankton is terrible. Here in D tier, things are slightly better. Every character in this tier is fairly average. They have tools that they can win with, but struggle against higher tier characters. Dudley Puppy is your run-of-the-mill brawler and shares a lot in common with the F tier characters. He's rather slow, but makes up for it with big damage. His ground normals actually don't have terrible range, which is a big deal for his pressure game. His special is quite interesting. It's a pounce attack with slow startup. What makes the move super cool is it has tracking properties at close range. This means that while the move is still not great, it can be used as a hard read to anti-air a jump. His super is fairly standard, being a swing with a bone that does massive damage. Overall, Dudley is still not that great, but can definitely win if he reads the opponent well. Kitty Catswell is a very average character. The only bad thing she has is her special move, which is a laser gun. The move has a massive blind spot and near a full second of startup, making it worthless. Other than that, all of Catswell's moves are fairly average. Jump kick is fast with average range, and the jab combo sends a good distance out with average speed. The standing kick is kinda weird, as it's an anti-air that doesn't really push people away, but can knock airborne opponents downwards, and doesn't knock shields away, which would be kinda cool if it wasn't unsafe on block. The really good thing that Catswell is known for is the super laser. A giant blast that does massive damage, is decently fast, and has good range. There's no denying it's a good move, but it's a super with no real way to spam it out. For those that played or watched my Super Brawl 1 video, you may be surprised to see Otis this slow. After all, in Super Brawl 1, he was absolutely broken, so what happened? Well, they decided his laser attack was too much and significantly nerfed it. It's now slower, shoots less, does less damage, and has higher end lag. This basically gutted the move, and while it's still annoying, Otis has to get you away to do much, and with how big and slow he is, he really struggles to do that. Sure, his combo and kick push you away, but you can just get right back before he can get anything off of it. Furthermore, his jump kick has pitiful range. However, there's one interesting quirk about Otis that makes him unique, and that's his super. Unlike most characters in the game, Otis' super builds off of his projectile, but not on hit, rather when he fires it. This lets him get his super fast, causing him to run off screen and tackle the opponent for massive damage. The move can be blocked, but Otis is too big for opponents to jump over it. Overall though, Otis just struggles quite a bit without distance. He could be good in a tag mode, but that's about it. C tier is where you start to see characters that have the insane wacky tools you'd expect. None of these characters are bad, they just rely on one gimmick to win, and it's a trickier gimmick to work with. Bessie Higginbottom is a very annoying zoner. She has fantastic range on her ground normals, making her hard to approach. Her air kick is pretty bad, but you'll likely be controlling the ground anyway, so that's okay. Bessie's special causes her to summon a horde of bees. These do alright damage, but push the opponent away, all the way back to the other corner. This makes Bessie super punishing to approach. However, blocking this move leaves Bessie wide open, as she'll hold the pose for like a second after the move. The super is very similar, making another swarm of bees with more damage and less knockback, but it has the same weakness. However, if Bessie pressures openings well, it's really easy to get chipped out by her. SpongeBob is a fairly standard rushdown. His kick is minus on hit, giving the opponent time to block or jump out of the way. The other moves aren't nearly as bad though, with a very generic 3-hit combo that does its job alright, and a very fast jump kick that has pretty low range. SpongeBob's super is nearly a direct upgrade from Plankton's, being a high startup slam, but has way more range and does significantly more damage. SpongeBob's main saving grace is his special, a quick moving flurry of kicks. The move has very low startup, builds meter, and crosses up opponents. This move carries SpongeBob as it's spammable and hard to punish. It's not a perfect move, as it has very little hit stun, making it unsafe with poor spacing, but it can get SpongeBob in and out well. Sandy is yet another middle-of-the-road character. Her ground and air kicks have fairly average reward, but aren't as active as other ones in the game. Punch combo puts people far enough away to start using her special, which is where Sandy really shines. Sandy has a very strange special, being a lasso whip with high startup, amazing range, and low end lag. An interesting property of this move is that it's considered a melee attack, not a projectile. This means that it builds meter and keeps the combo going for better score potential. Sandy's super is a stronger version of the normal special, making it quite viable to spam. However, if the opponent is expecting Sandy's zoning, they can attempt to jump over it, which while difficult, will generally put Sandy in pressure she can't deal with. B tier is very similar to C tier. So much so that honestly, I just split them so we have more even tiers. The main thing you'll see with B tier is that the gimmicks are much stronger and harder to counter. Rico is what you'd expect from a top tier zoner in any other game. His dynamite is fast, and while it has slow startup, it can be cancelled into itself for a near unstoppable barrage. This isn't truly infinite, so the opponent can try to jump in to punish you. If they do, Rico's normals are excellent at punishing jump-ins, and while not the strongest or best, do the job well at keeping people out. Rico's super throws a grenade that deals big damage, but is slow and doesn't really do much else. Danny Phantom is a mid-ranged spacing character that turns into a corner monster. For his body type, Danny has some pretty huge normals that he can use to push the opponent to the corner. Once they're there, he can use his massive laser special to punish any attempts to jump out and push them right back. But what makes Danny really crazy is the super loops. Danny's super is this massive energy blast multi-hit that pushes people away, doing big damage in the process. The problem with this is that at mid-screen the opponent will fall out, which the move is designed around. In the corner, however, this does not happen, dealing huge damage and filling Danny's super bar halfway up. This conceivably lets Danny do 2 or 3 supers in the time that it takes other characters to do 1. Basically, do not let him take you to the corner. Aang is a weird character to be this high, as all in all he's kinda bad. His normals are fast but have pretty bad range, and his jump kick has deceptively few active frames. The reason he's so high is that he hard counters a good chunk of the cast. His special move has him jump into the air and rain down energy blasts. This move starts up fast and can punish a large amount of projectiles. The move doesn't work at all at close range, but at that point a lot of Aang's disadvantages become more manageable. His super is also great, dealing big damage and giving him a really fast close range and zoning option. However, Aang loses really bad to characters with exceptionally good footsies. Speaking of good footsies, Dr. Blowhole is second to none. His normals are all tail slaps and have massive range. Jump kick is especially good as it's huge and stupidly active. While he doesn't have an infinite, his footsies and pressure are near unstoppable. His special is a full screen laser that counts as a melee attack for some reason, which would be good if it wasn't so slow. The super, however, is solid enough, being a powerful combination of a slam and water projectile. Overall, Blowhole lacks a crazy gimmick like a lot of the other characters, but makes up for that with the fact that he's got fundamentals in a game that's sorely lacking them. And now we move on to A tier, which I labeled as the last honest tier. The characters in this tier are very strong and have a lot of ways to destroy opponents, but nothing that I would consider outright cheap. We're getting to the crazy stuff though, so hang on as we go through the calm before the storm. Classic SpongeBob is a character who's just good at everything. His normals are huge, making it hard for opponents to challenge them. This is especially true for his air kick, which might be the most active in the game and stuffs out approaches well. He also has a very good projectile, which while not as spammable as Rico's, is all around very good. His super is a massive multi-hit laser based on Shinku Hadoken from Marvel vs. Capcom. Its damage is average, but it's fast and full screen, so it's very good nonetheless. Overall, there's not too much to talk about classic SpongeBob. There's nothing insane about him, but everything he has is solid across the board with no weaknesses. Fanboy is another character that's just all around solid. His punch and kick have good range, and his air kick is notoriously fast with no landing lag. That's not the reason he's on here though. Oh no! Fanboy is one of the only characters with a true, meterless invincible reversal. His special is this weird brain whip thing that is invincible during its active frames, which there are a lot of. This allows the move to be a fantastic fireball punish as it can go through them while attacking the opponent. Fanboy's super is pretty tough to use and doesn't do a lot of damage, which does kinda hold him back a bit. At first, I didn't want to put Patrick this high, because my first impressions were based on how much they gutted him from Super Brawl 1. His normals are now reasonably sized instead of full screen, which hurts his game plan a lot as you'd assume. Patrick's special is actually really good now, as it's fast and almost full screen, but it can be whiff punished, so be aware of that. What makes Patrick this high up though, is his super. Dear God, his super. At first glance, it looks standard enough, throwing a star projectile forward. However, the move is a multi-hit and doesn't despawn after a certain number of hits. That means if you do it near the corner, the opponent can take upwards of 80% of their HP in a single hit. Even if the rest of his kit is pretty standard now, there's no way I can ignore a move that crazy. And now, we arrive at the real crazies. S tier is where the terror begins. Every character in S tier has some cheap, game-breaking mechanic that will eliminate those who are not careful to avoid their traps. Jimmy Neutron is not a character I often see as a top tier contender, but I think he certainly is. The reason I think he's undervalued is that a lot of his moves are just good. His air kick and jab combo are nothing to write home about. His special is a fast laser that actually counts as a melee attack and holds down space well. However, the remaining moves are certainly quite crazy. Jimmy's super is full screen in the funniest way I've ever seen. He jets off screen, coming back on the other side and slamming into the opponent. This can be jumped, but doing so just causes Jimmy to keep doing it until you either get hit by it or block it. This can be great at getting that last bit of chip damage. The best thing Jimmy has though is his ground kick, which while low ranged is an infinite in the corner with proper timing. While infinites aren't too uncommon in Super Brawl 2, Jimmy's footsies combined with this make him a force to be reckoned with. Sheen is my personal main in Super Brawl 2, and is one of the best rushdowns in the game. He does have a few weak moves, but the rest of his kit is insane. His jump attack is this weird front flip. It's very active but has no range and is really awkward to work with. His punch combo is just average too. The last hit doesn't push too far away, and overall the combo has pretty low range. Sheen's super is a quick projectile that whiffs at point blank. It works well after the 3-hit combo and is just kind of a standard move. The last two moves though are absolutely cracked. Standing kick is a launcher, something quite rare in Super Brawl 2, and there's a good reason for that. Super Brawl 2 does not have air blocking or techs. This means that unless you were already blocking when you got hit by the launcher, Sheen can just juggle you with another launcher as long as he can follow your movement. Even blocking isn't all that helpful, as Sheen can still launch you in your shield, like some kind of human beach ball. This property makes it debatably better than an infinite, as the opponent cannot rely on blocking to escape it. The last move Sheen has is a full screen headbutt. It crosses up, does good damage, is invincible on startup, and is near impossible to punish. The best thing to do is retreat to the corner and try to catch Sheen, but that makes the kick even worse. While Sheen's kit has some mediocre tools, he's carried by two of the best moves in the game. Monkey is certainly top tier, and if you put him at the top of your list, I honestly wouldn't even fault you. However, he's certainly the hardest top tier in the game. His punch and kick are some of the largest in the game, with his kick even having an infinite. It's unsafe on block, but otherwise if you have the timing right, the opponent is stuck. Where Monkey's true power comes in is his special and super. The special shoots a pink projectile and the super shoots a gold one. This move seems pretty basic, but there's two really interesting properties to it. One, the special version is as fast as you can input it. Provided your input is precise enough, you can do this move infinitely, and there's nothing the opponent can do about it. The second thing, however, completely breaks the idea of a tier list altogether. Every time you shoot a projectile, you are rewarded with score. You still gain more upon hitting the projectile, but still, this is a straight up score generator and the only one of its kind. I think that if you were only looking at this through the lens of what scores the best, this move is undeniably the best in the game. There's also the interesting property that while the projectile doesn't combo, the points it gives you scales based on your combo, so there's incentive to get in before doing the combo. However, the reason I have decided not to put Monkey as top 1 is simply because Monkey is not as consistent as the other top tiers in other areas. And now, we arrive at the final tier, God tier. God tier characters shatter all bounds of competition. If you fight a God tier character, odds are you will lose. Oftentimes, there is nothing you can do. Ah yes, Mr. TOD himself, Skipper. I had a whole section on this guy in my first retrospective, so I'm going to keep it brief this time. Skipper is notorious for having two infinites, which can chain into each other if you want. The first is a kick infinite in the corner, which is unsafe on block but still hard to escape. The second is the shuriken special move, which throws 3 shurikens forward. The move is plus enough it can combo into itself while letting Skipper inch forward, but comes with a downside of being highly committal. Other than that, Skipper has a pretty solid punch, an alright air kick, and a super that can be hard to hit, but does massive damage. Overall, Skipper is a force to be reckoned with. I came into this with a pretty confident guess that Skipper was going to be the top of the tier list. After all, he's insanely strong, has multiple infinites, and can sweep through the game. However, I think that there's a few characters that surpass even him, and join him in God tier. Chum Chum's only weakness is a lack of range on his normals. This sounds like it would be a problem until you find out he has the same projectile as Monkey, a move that can be timed to spam with near perfect accuracy, leading to a ranged infinite. He can combo this off of the punch combo, which is pretty average like most characters. The special is arguably better than the shurikens as it has almost no commitment. I didn't know this until starting this video, which is why I undervalued him so much before. His kick is also a corner infinite and a pretty fast one too, being safer, keeping opponents stuck even while blocking, and deleting opponents in the corner before they can react. Lastly, his super is absolutely insane, throwing the Frosty Freeze into the air and raining down projectiles. This move hits an insane amount of times, pushes people to the corner, and the end lag is cancelable, making it 100% safe. The icing on the cake? Chum Chum is the smallest character in the game, so some moves such as Dr. Blowhole's punch fly right over Chum Chum. Without a doubt, Chum Chum is one of the best characters in the game. When doing research for this video, I discovered something I think only a few people have found. You see, there is a definitive best character in Super Brawl, and it's not one you might expect. You see, Chum Chum and Skipper probably have 9-1 matchups across a lot of the cast. Now that's really good, but what if there was a character with 10-0 matchups? A character that you would have a 100% chance of losing to, unless you had an oddly specific broken tool to counter them. As you can probably guess, I'm alluding to our mystery top tier. Of all characters, Kyle. Kyle has stayed hidden so long because he doesn't seem like the broken type at first. His normals are average at best, low range, low active frames, the works. His super is also just okay and probably easily avoidable. And at first, his special move seems to be like Timmy Turner's, powerful, but ultimately too slow to be useful. And that would be where you're wrong, as Kyle's special is the most broken move in the game. Let me break down why. First, the move is tracking in full screen. The move is going to spawn on top of you every time without fail. Easy fix, right? Just walk out of the way, should be easy enough to dodge. Well, unfortunately, the move is large enough that even if you hold forward, you cannot get past it. Well, looks like you'll have to block, not too uncommon. Characters like Otis require you to block too. Well, if you read Pipka's thread, you know what I'm about to say, because that piqued my interest in this move, and I checked it, and sure enough, this move does the same damage blocking as it does not, making blocking the move completely worthless. But you're not out of options yet, you could still attack him, right? Except the move has invincibility throughout the duration for some reason, and will come out even if he's hit on the same frame he inputs the move. And if all of that wasn't bad enough, the move can be spammed under certain conditions. What those conditions are, frankly, I'm not too sure. It's either timing or spacing. What I do know, though, is that this move basically murders you and your hopes and dreams of beating Kyle. The only characters that don't get deleted are those with a command dash, such as Sheen, SpongeBob, or if you're really feeling a death wish, Plankton. Generally, though, Kyle is gonna win, no matter what you do. And that brings a close to our list. This 22 character roster is full of surprises. And I hope you had fun looking through the insanity as much as I did. If you like what you saw, I hope you stick around for more fighting game insanity. And it would help a lot if you subscribed. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. See you next time!